So I mean, this looks like a very dream story to people who are actually struggling at that taking that leap, right? A lot of people have ideas. A lot of us have very, very, very good ideas, but just out of this fear that would I be able to manage? uh, the people who are privileged like us don't have the don't have the fear that what if it fails. Okay. uh, Again, assuming that
Yeah,
all of there are a lot of people like us, but there are a lot who don't have that kind of privilege. Failure for them
right,
would mean a lot of devastation. So I
right.
think this is very inspirational to people who are watching this and saying, "Okay, I have a good idea, but I have a lot of priorities in front of me. Where do I place this? And should I place it?" I think this is the right answer. Coming on to the operative part, and this is a very MUN vocabulary I'm using here. Coming to the operative part of the whole project, how does Chitta function, and what does it exactly do? Please explain.
Right. Like, I want to take that one.
Sure. So at Chitta, what we do is, we've obviously been bootstrapping. Okay, that's something that we've been doing. Like, even though we have the fund, we're always pushing ourselves like to go one step further. Like, we're not like, itna hi fund hai to itna hi we'll try to do. We're trying to maximize impact. Sometimes, with respect to COVID, also the kind of initiatives we've done, we've taken a leap beyond what we expected and imagined, because we're like, the situation demands it. We'll kickstart this, and then we'll see how to figure things out on the way, but let's at least start. So that's something that we do. We make do with the resources that we have, and then we keep building on it. So that's the basic principle that we follow. Secondly would be, we have initially, when Chitta started out, we started out with a very small team, of like 4 to 5 people, where some of them were from our college only. They heard that, we won the resolution fellowship, and then they came to us that we want to help with mental health, because even they've gone through something like that. So we found those people. Then we started, like, each of us we would all dabble into everything. Then slowly we started specializing, that, we hired someone named Samriddhi, who's still with us. She helped us with the outreach bit, and she was from a psychology background. So that really added, because she knew, she had the network with psychologists, which is a major part of, Chitta's operations, because Sagar and I don't come from a mental health background. So that was one. Then we had Abhishek, who, helped us with getting everything in place, making the databases, and, outreach and things like that. Then there was someone, Forum, who helped us with design and, coming up with the brand guidelines, the brand language, the logo, how we want to communicate with our audience, things like that. And Sagar and I would always, make sure that everything, I'm more of the kind of person, like, even when I mentioned that, Sagar and I, we complement each other, it's because Sagar is the one who is, thinking on his feet, and he's the one who comes up with all these great ideas. And I'm better with, rather than the ideation, but like most of it goes to him, like the credit goes to him. I'm the one who prefers, making lists. I'm more of the organized person, so I like executing those and putting it into timelines and structuring it. I'm not the kind of person who will suddenly be like, hey, let's do this. That's because Sagar gives me that push, that I get that confidence to do it. And right now we're a team of volunteers. So Sagar, if you want to take it further, like how we're operating now.
Yeah. I think first I would like to. I don't think we mentioned what we do. So I think if Aditya is coming to me, is coming to Chitta, first he will find resources, mental health resources, through which he can, try and understand the problems he is facing. For example, if Aditya is, is facing an issue where he feels like he's doing a lot, and he's, even doing well for himself, but he still feels like a fraud. He feels like, I'm not doing enough. Like, I feel like I'm fooling everybody, and I am actually not as valuable as people think I am. So that's an imposter syndrome. I am putting a label to it. I'm helping you understand what you're going through. So we have multiple such issues that we talk about that students face, like be it exam anxiety, be it. So we have like two branches. One is where we create awareness, where we try to create awareness through our posts to try and tell students that these are the things that you can, look at. Second is the connecting students to mental health professionals. That's, I think, a majority. That's what makes us different. Like, we are not an
Hmm.
Instagram page that's only educating, but we are also actually implementing, where we have a network of mental health professionals. So if Aditya comes to me and says, hey, I would like to get connected to a mental health professional, or I want to seek help. And then we asked Aditya, okay, thank you for reaching out. Tell us a little bit about whether you can afford one, or what's your budget, or things like that, because all of that is important. Like, we don't want to exceed. So if Aditya tells me that, hey, I can afford around 400 rupees or something, then we try to give you a verified professional who works in that budget range, who can,
Oh,
you can maybe talk to them. So that's something we do. If Aditya comes and tells me, hey, I absolutely cannot pay anything right now because I'm not financially independent and money comes from my parents, then we try and get you either connected to pro bono professionals who do it for students who can't afford or can't pay for sessions, or we sponsor sessions on our own. So we are like, okay, this, but that happens on a case by
Case
case
by case.
basis.
right.
So when we feel like, there are, I mean, not when we, but a mental health professional feels, okay, this is a serious case and requires immediate intervention, then, and we're like, and they can't pay, then we step in and we are like, okay, we will pay for their sessions, and this is how the whole thing goes. So everywhere we ensure that there's a mental health professional involved, because that's extremely important
Yeah,
in our operation. Be it awareness, be it understanding whether the case is serious or not. Everywhere there's a mental health professional, because that's how we try to fill the competency gap that we as co-founders face. So if you as a co-founder, anybody watching this, faces competencies gaps, try and understand what's the best way to fill it. Is it to either upskill yourself, or is it to outsource it to somebody? So it's
mm,
either upskill or outsource. So for us, the obvious option was to outsource, because we have an engineering background. We can't go and study psychology now.
right.
So for us, it was outsourcing. So that's what we did. And so for any student who comes to us, we connect them to mental health professionals, and at the same time, we provide them with the resources that they require to understand or figure out things that they're struggling with. Be it things. What are the things that students face? A student faces anxiety when it comes to academics, faces heartbreaks when it comes to relationships. They are, these are new relationships that you guys are getting
Yeah,
into as adults. So you don't know how to cope with them. People are not talking about that. We talk about that because we tend to ourselves to realize that, oh, ye to kuch nahi tha, matlab, it's not. But it does hurt you, right? There's a heartbreak there. There's
yeah.
issues that you mentally feel down. So those are the things that we try to cover and talk about. And we do this through. So we were initially planning on doing it. So we launched in February 2020. We were initially we were planned very small thing, Aditya. So we had planned कि मुंबई में हम schools और colleges में workshops conduct करेंगे और awareness बढ़ाएंगे.
Mm,
But life had different plans for us. March 2020 happened. The lockdown came into being. The whole model that we pitched at resolution, that this is what we're going to do, everything went into water because
Yeah.
everything was an offline thing. So
yeah.
then we had to completely pivot online. Like, we had to
Yes.
change our complete model, and we're like, now what to do? So we had to immediately come up with ideas, campaigns. So the first wave of the pandemic, that's what we did. We tried to cover issues that students are facing, be it isolation, be it being productive in the pandemic,
Uncertainty.
Yeah.
uncertainty. So these are the issues we kind of covered in the first phase, and we got because that's when. So before, believe it or not, before, like in Feb 2020, nobody was talking about mental health. There was some percentage of population talking about it, but the minute the pandemic hit, everybody started focusing on mental health.
Yeah.
The
I think a
conversation.
funny thing would be that Sagar and I, like my parents, our parents were all like, they were also like, yeah, kuch hobby hai, like something that they're doing. And then after the pandemic hit, they started asking us, oh, tell me more now about your venture. What is
Yeah.
mental health? And I think that's something that really, motivated us as well, because the pandemic is definitely, there's a way to look at it that, it was really bad for a lot of people and mental health demand increased. But in a way, it was also a blessing in disguise for us, because now we knew that people actually want to know what they're going through, and they have all these resources. And if we can make sure that we're leveraging that and making them understand that, not just our generation, but also our parents now are, more open to understanding mental health. And I think that's something that they didn't have the privilege, because, sometimes even they were too caught up with building a whole life and like their struggles, their economic struggles, things like that. Right now we're in a position where we know that, the conversation is open because it's a global health crisis. And when you talk
Yeah.
about the health crisis, your physical health is equally important and comparable to your mental health.
Mhm.
So that was another thing. And then we also, as Sagar mentioned, we started covering all these topics, and we had like beautiful collaborations because so many people came and they wanted to help us. I think one important interesting project that we did was the One Family project, where we had people from around 17 to 20 countries coming and sharing their stories of how they were dealing with the pandemic. So we compiled all of that, and we wanted to give out a message to everyone that you're not in this alone. We're all in this together, and we will get through this together. So that was beautiful to see. And another thing that happened was, as Sagar mentioned, our operations and the scalability that we were looking at was only centered locally. We were thinking Bombay. But after everything went online, we had this campaign which was for the LGBTQIA plus community during the Pride month. And that's when things again blew up for us, because we were in a pandemic, we were providing mental health services for free to a marginalized class of the society, the
Right.
community that does not have rights. No one gives them a voice. And that's when we reached out to 23 countries, 23 cities across India. And yeah, that was, these little anecdotes I'm sharing is because how this helped us upscale and like adapt. And I think those are the things that were very, like was a driving factor for us.
And I think one more thing that was a blessing in disguise, as Nilika, the theme of blessing in disguise. I think before the pandemic, the concept of therapy was mostly in person, but
Hmm.
because of the pandemic, it shifted to a Zoom call or a phone call for that matter. And in this, what happened was therapists top therapists sitting in Bangalore, Mumbai, Delhi were accessible to tier 2, tier 3 cities that we never heard of. Like when it came to the Pride and No Prejudice campaign, like we got people from small towns and villages where they had to write near Allahabad or near this, because we wouldn't know what town or village that they're talking about.
Oh,
So that really humbled us, because we're like, these individuals are reaching out for help. These are the ones that we're trying to give this access to. So we were extremely happy that the services during the pandemic are even being extended to the smaller or lesser known sections of the society. So that's something that was really reassuring when we were working in the space during the pandemic.